Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mankind in Training. Today, we're going to do a walkthrough of some C++ basics, and we're going to build. I'm going to walk you through how to start a project in Visual Studio, and we're going to build something in there. So, I'm going to share my screen now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for showing up and watching these. It's nice to see that I have people viewing them and subscribers, and I am on Patreon, and we do have a GoFundMe currently for the page. So thank you everybody for watching. What we're going to do now is I've opened Visual Studio, and you can do quite a few things when you first open it up. Here's some of my older projects. The game that I had showed you is right here. The original game that I had wrote is there, but that one is a Linux compiled one, and we switched it up and made a Windows because my professor requested as such. And what we're going to do now is create a new project. We've opened up Visual Studio. Now, what we can do here is something like this, or something like this, or the Windows desktop application. Or really, you can do anything you want. We can do a CMake project. Um, Here are the Linux compileds. You can make a DLL. What I'm going to do today, though, why are these all in a different order than they were? And I don't see one that I want, actually. They're all in a different order. So what I'm going to do is this one right here. I'm going to pick a C++ Windows console application. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this MIT underscore C++, or I'll do CPP in case it doesn't like plus, and basics. And we're just going to put it in my source repos here. I'm going to create this here project, Windows C++ console app, and we're going to build this right here. I was thinking about what to make, and what we're going to do is I have the idea of creating something like a tutoring structure that's going to take in a bunch of information about uh, a tutoring session. And it will have the tutor name, tutor ID, the client name, client ID, and it will have the time, and then it will have like the meeting ID and meeting name, things like that. I'm going to walk you around how this is navigated a little bit. Up here is where you will save and do all of that business, where you can, yeah, you can do all kinds of things from here. Clone the repository to a GitHub. There is a Git button even on the top of here. Oh, it's right here. Yeah. You can do clone Git repository, create Git repository, you can clone it. This is a great IDE, and the debugging is also pretty fantastic. We're just using standard Windows debugger right now. and you have to download the correct module with Visual Studio in order to have that functionality, or else you're going to end up with pretty much entirely Linux compilations unless you download the Windows packages. If you go to project, this is the best way to add classes, is to not just make a new .8, which you can do. You can just create a new header file and then put your class in there. But if you do this add class, it will sync everything together and it will create a .cpp for the class as well as a .h file for the class. And it just does everything for you. So you might as well take advantage of that functionality that's right here in Visual Studio. With include IOStream, we're going to include string. And then we're gonna using namespace C. What we're going to do is we're gonna run this real quick and see the output. It'll say hello world. There we are, and we have output our first application within just a couple of minutes. Here we are, hello world. That's usually the first step to coding in like all languages. We're just gonna get rid of that for now, and what we're gonna do is create a struct called tutor session, and in that struct there will be string that goes by the name client name, and then there will be an int called client ID, and then there will be a string for tutor name. There will be an int for tutor ID. There will be a string for the date, and there will be, I'm not sure how if I want to do an int. I think I'd rather just do a string for time as well. And then what did I say? Okay, we were gonna have an int. Well, maybe we'll make that a string as well. I will see how it works. We'll see if it works or not. There will be a string called the meeting ID or meeting name. Or meeting ID, and then it's meeting password is what it is. And then there's a string for meeting password. And this is like a setup for to get people who really truly want to learn together with people who truly want to show people things and teach people things. And they can schedule a tutoring session via Zoom just using this here program. If we build it out and give it a UI and make it into a web application or something, there's a lot of things that you can do once you've built something like this. So this is what we have. What I did is create a struct, which is kind of like a class, but it's not, it's a struct. And the difference between a class and a struct is a class by default has there's more than this difference, but this is the main one. The class by default has all of its component parts. All of them are private by default in a class, and in a struct, they're all public. And the difference between public and private is that private uh, components can only be accessed within the class, whereas public ones can be accessed from things that are trying to access that information from outside of the class. You can openly call this stuff here into something else, like a function down there. But if it's private, you can't. You'd have to make that function in the struct within the confines. It's just out of scope, is the term, I guess, what they would call that. So now that we built this struct, we're going to build a constructor, is what this is called. And it's just going to say tutor session. And now we're going to go one by one and go cli name string. And and then we're gonna go int cli ID. Yeah, no, that's it. So, and then we're gonna get another string tut name, then int tut ID. And then string d string e string meet ID. Or string meet pass W. So, and then I'm not sure I have to check that out here in a second. I'm just gonna keep going like I know. Okay, so client, really? I'm not sure why these aren't saving and what the problem is. What is the problem? What is going on here? Hmm, that's weird. That's so weird. Huh. Lou. There we go. That's what I was doing wrong. Okay. Yeah, you can't build it outside of the class like I was doing there. I was like, man, what is going on? I've done this before. This is not working how I remember. And then we're gonna go client. Yeah, there we go. I was out of scope. I was just explaining how you can't do things out of scope, and then I started making it out of scope. And that's why I didn't identify what I was looking for. That's why I couldn't find client name, and that's why I didn't actually need to do the STD because I am using namespace. I just did some unnecessary things just now. So I really should have took more time to look at what was going on rather than just start trying stuff until things worked. I would have remembered that I couldn't. Yeah, that this is how it needs to be done. So where were we? That's right. Tutor name equals tut name tutor ID equals tut ID and date equals D. Time equals T. Meeting ID equals meet ID. And meeting password equals meeting pass W or meet pass W. Ah, there we are. So I've now created the struct of tutor session, and this is just going to be part of this application. We'll keep building stuff to this, and maybe it'll turn out to be something worth making actually. Turning into a building on it, making it into something else than just a console application. But for now, just to teach the basics of some C++, and over here is how you navigate the various files and things that have been made for your repository. once I add some classes to this, those files will all be over here and you can navigate that way. And then they should start piling up, pinned up here too as well. So now that I've made a constructor and I've made the struct, now we're going to go into the main and we're going to call it. And we're going to make a we're going to go tutor session, tutor session not, and then we're going to input them one by one. So client name, we're going to put John Smith, and then the client ID, we're going to go with something like that, maybe. And then we're going to go Doc Smarty Pants. And then that's going to be something like that. Okay, where are we? We just did tutor ID. So now we're at date, which is going to be 3/8 2023. And then it's going to be 2 p.m. And then it's going to be something like that. Okay. So we have that there. Now what we need to do is do something like this. Display tutor session. Cout client name, and then client name. Again, I'm out of scope. I thought them should have been accessible because I made a struct and not a class. And yeah, I don't, maybe I still need to specify. Yeah, I don't think that's right. Okay, so and that last bit was to end the line, and then this is to print a new line. Yeah, no, maybe I should have waited till the ID to do that. Okay, we'll just go with that. And then cout client. Oh, yeah. There's going to be some ID. And then client ID. And endl and line. And then \n for a new line. And then cout tutor name. Tutor. Endl cout tutor ID. And I'm just putting these in here so it's clear what is being printed where when it does print it out to the screen for us. And then we're going to put tutor ID and then endl and then pipe in a new line. And then we're going to do cout and then date. Yeah, maybe it was just two I was giving them. I want them to kind of look the same. Doesn't look too unprofessional. And then give it the date. And then endl. And then cout the time. Time. No. Endl. New line. And then cout meeting ID. Endl. And cout. Ah! Meeting password. Meeting password. Endl. All of them have. Okay, yeah, I was wondering. I was like, what's okay? So where's the issue? And now what we're gonna do now that we built this display into the struct with a constructor. Now that we've used a constructor, I can do a technique called the following. Uh, ah! We're going to uh tutor session 0 dot display tutor session. And then I believe that's all we need to do there. Um, now what I just did, we included some things. IOStream string.h using namespace std, so I didn't have to do this, but I just started doing it because there was an error line and I was wondering why. But now I know why. I was doing things out of scope, like I was just explaining not to do. And here is a constructor. And then here is the display. And then inside of our main, we made a constructor, a new constructor called Tutor Session 0, the very first tutor session with Doc Smarty Pants, tomorrow at 2 o'clock p.m. And then it'll display those things. And that's what we have, that void function with just couts. That's what that's going to do here. So we're going to run this, and hopefully there will be no errors because it was pretty simple and there's not too much code here actually. But we will try to run it, and hopefully it does exactly what I want it to do. Everything needs a semicolon at the end of it pretty much, except for like right there. Obviously, it'll troll you. Visual Studio will give you a little red line if something's wrong somewhere. So most of the time, if it says no issues found, it's gonna run. It just might not do what you want it to do. You might have a logical issue. So we're gonna run this. We're gonna build it with the compiler, C++ compiler in Windows. Just kind of like a terminal, just like the Linux terminal, except it's for Windows. Awesome. So we went from Hello World to building a functional housing system for meetings like this. So John Smith set up a meeting with, oh my, we have a bug. I wonder what happened there. Doc Smarty Pants. Let's check that out. Let's see why that happened. Huh. Huh. Oh. Oh, oh, oh. There we are. I found the bug already. That was quick. That was a quick debug. So it ran, it just didn't print Doc Smarty Pants' name. And we need to know Doc Smarty Pants is the one who's taken up this session to teach John Smith. Oh, that's what we were gonna build. That's right, that's right. One more thing. It's not quite complete. So let's go through here, and we're gonna have a string called subject. Tutor subject. And right before date and time. String tut sub. Tutor subject equals tut sub. And then we need to add that down here. And then we're gonna do tutor subject handle. And then we're gonna give it a new line. Okay. And then we are going to, it's right before the date. Right. C plus plus. Slash computer science. All right. I think that's all we need. Now let's run this again. And there we are. Awesome. So there we go. We started from an empty project, pretty much. All it had was your main, and include IOStream is all they really write for you. Plus it said hello world, but we deleted that because we wanted to build this. And we did. We built a struct, and it houses what we want it to. We wanted to create a struct that will house the information for when one of these meetings gets scheduled, and it will output this information to a database or whatever you want to do, really. There's lots of ways, and we're going to keep building on this in the future, but this is just the first part of a simple walkthrough of C++ basics. I'm going to go back through here I'm going to kind of hold it in place a little bit so you guys can read what's going on and use what you need to. These don't need that. It still runs with it, but they didn't need it. Just feel free to pause the video if you want to steal any of this. Not that you want to steal my names or just the structure of how I did things. So it will output what you want for whatever you're making. So I'll try to hold it up a little bit for a minute so you guys can see what was all done using namespace. There's my struct, the class that's just public. There's my constructor where I make another value that can be used in the main to fill in a tutor session. And I just it looked like usually they only use like 1 or 2 letters. You can write whatever you want though. You can do this however you want. You can do pointers too. You can use pointers and reference as well. But I did exactly that in that order. You define these ones, and then you define the shortened ones in the constructor. And then you tell the constructor that the shortened versions are indeed these values from this struct. And then what I did was made a built-in display, so there was no confusion as to what was what. And that helped because otherwise I would have kind of had to do it from memory when I seen that the tutor name didn't have an output. Like I would have had to be like, oh, okay, so which one did I write third? Or really, you just have to back out and look at your code. But little things like when your code runs, but it doesn't do what you want, those are harder things to debug than what the actual problem, like an actual problem that gives you a red line. Because usually Visual Studio is pretty good at telling you what the problem was in the first place. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to keep building on this. We're also going to keep building on the game that I was building, the console application that is an RPG that is still totally getting built. It's just on pause kind of for the moment because I'm in fundamentals and architecture computer class, and at the same time I have Android mobile development class, and I'm in Android Studio currently developing applications for cell phones, and that's pretty intensive. It's kind of difficult. The interface is cool, but there's just a lot to it. There's a lot to learning a new language. Well, I know about Java a little bit, but once you're doing high level like Android Studio things where you're building things down to a phone with an emulator, there's a lot of built-in functions for these packages that just aren't the Java that you remember really. But that's kind of how it is with a lot of things. Like if you have packages built onto original languages, there's just you use the new functions the package has. So thank you for listening and watching, everybody. We went out to the main. We called the tutor session struct that we had. We gave the new tutor session a name, and then we filled in all the values one by one that need to go in these places. And you got to do them in the right order, or else your output's going to be incorrect. So as long as you got that right, and then we can write into this how to take this from the user and to take the name of the available person from a database, and we can fill it in. This is just a like forced, just to make sure that this actually outputs what we want it to output. This is just kind of a forced version of that. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me on YouTube, or I think I have my email and contact information on the page. I appreciate anybody who's like religiously coming and watching, because it seems like there's been a lot of people that have. There are return watchers, and I thank all of you that are. If you like what you saw, hit a like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. We're probably going to switch over to the game next. We're going to do the game, C++ RPG, called Terrible Quest, part 4 or whatever, and then we'll do this this tutor application part 2 in like a week or so. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you then.